My manipulative wife refuses to work or help around the house and constantly tells me to man up and deal with it, despite knowing I should leave her. I don't want to. Many years ago, she begged me to take on a second full-time job to put her through college, and I did. However, after completing her degree, she suddenly decided she didn't want to work and preferred staying home with our child. When our second child was born, I knew we needed more money, but she refused to work. So I went back to school to complete a master's degree while still working 2 jobs. Fast forward 3 years, and I now support our household of 4 on a single income. I am deeply stressed and chronically tired, working 50-hour weeks. When I come home, I do the washing, cooking, and drive the kids everywhere. I handle 75% of the household responsibilities, but my wife refuses to help. Whenever I ask for help, she claims she works just as hard and tells me to stop working so much if I'm so tired. Recently, I took her advice and took 2 weeks off without informing her beforehand. She freaked out, worried about how she would pay for her spa day. She always seems to need to one-up me. If I say I had a bad day, she claims hers was worse. If I mention my feet hurt from walking 30,000 steps during work travel, she says it's nothing compared to standing and cooking with a child clinging to her. For the past 2 years, she has blamed me for ruining her life and opportunities, making me feel terrible. She acts as if she wasn't the one who chose to be a stay-at-home mother in the first place. One significant aspect is that my mother-in-law La lives with us, and she is absolutely lovely. Despite her age, she genuinely does her best around the house. Recently, she pulled me aside and mentioned that she has noticed a change in both my wife and me. She observed that I have a stronger attachment to my kids, and that I have even hugged the dogs and talked to them about my life more than I have with my wife. I feel like I am in emotional survival mode, being 1 step away from moving up the career ladder and 1 step away from seeking comfort at the bottom of a whiskey bottle. Recently, I confronted my wife and didn't back down when she played the woe is me card. Instead of talking it out and refuting any of my points, she left our house to stay with her sister. The day after she packed up and left, she attempted to come back and take the kids with her to her sister's place. Naturally, I was against this, and thankfully so was her entire family, including her sister. It was unfair to our kids to sweep them away into an unfamiliar home and put that financial and housing stress on the rest of her family, given that she doesn't work and her sister's family, including her husband and 3 kids, lives with their dad in the house they grew up in. After being away for a little over a week, she seemed to have cooled off and decided it would be fine to walk back into our house with her bags as if she just returned from a shopping trip. She came into my home office while I was working and stared at me angrily while I was on a conference call with my team. It was a busy time of the quarter, and I couldn't just jump off the call. I guess that didn't sit well with her, because once I took off my headset and closed my laptop, she started yelling at me about how much I really don't care about her and her well-being. At that moment, I couldn't do anything more than look at her and just shake my head. My mother-in-law came in after hearing my wife yelling and pulled her away, telling her not to bother me, while our nanny kept our youngest away from it all on the other side of the house. That night, after the kids were put to bed, I sat in my office by myself with a drink, as I had been doing for the past few nights. My wife came in, and we talked, argued, cried, and drank. One thing led to another, and we ended up in bed together. I wish I could say that was our reconciliation, but the next sobering morning, as we lay there, she went on about how hard it was for her during the time she was gone. She talked about her struggles staying at her family house in her old room with her dad and sister's family, and how lucky I am to be able to stay here and do this and that, and not stress as much as they did. She went on about how easy my life and everyone else's in our family are compared to hers, even though we had similar upbringings. My mind and heart broke that morning. I've been spiraling down since then. Last week I made another attempt to reconcile and talk things out, but it turned into a shouting match. While trying to express my current stress and anxieties with life and work, she retorted with, "Do you know how hard this is all for me? You're supposed to help me be happy," when I replied, "So when it comes to my happiness, stress, needs and I don't know who the woman I am at home with is, but she isn't the woman I married and vowed to spend my life with and raise our kids together." Since that conversation, I've been noticeably distant from her. I've been sleeping in my office, on the couch, or with my kids in their bed after putting them to sleep. Nothing has changed. She still starts her day at 10 a.m. and sits on her phone talking to her mum groups while the kids are in the care of both my mother-in-law and the nanny. Sadly, overall well-being, I should just get over it, right? She responded, "We all have our own problems. You need to figure it out and get over them." I doubt anything will change. I think even if we got a divorce, nothing would change or feel different. During my wife's absence, the days seemed like any other, except with a bit more takeout than usual. My main fear is that I wouldn't just lose my wife, I'd lose my kids in the process. After a hard push from our family via an intervention, my wife and I finally attempted marriage counselling. I'm sure many of you can guess how well that went. Blame, tears, regrets and gaslighting, with a side of me being the reason for her life being ruined and horrible. This time, it was in front of a licensed therapist instead of her mum groups. In the end, everything the therapist suggested and noted went over her head and was ignored as it went against her status quo. One noteworthy moment was when the therapist asked her when she last truly felt happy. Her response was about 12 years ago. Please note that 12 years ago she was still in her 20s, childless and living with her ex, a vastly different time and position in life. I know it's petty of me, but if that's when she was last happy, it wouldn't be far-fetched for her to find that happiness again, especially since her ex is still in the same apartment, job, and place in life as he was 12 years ago. While that might be fine for her, it's not my idea of living. In my 40s with kids, clubbing 3 or 4 days a week isn't my jam anymore. To add, some might wonder about cheating. I know and can confirm she hasn't physically cheated on me, but I can't confirm if she did emotionally. After the therapy session, I checked her phone records and didn't see anything out of the ordinary, but I didn't bother to check apps like Instagram or Snapchat. I know I'm probably boring, but shout out to all the Costco dads whose Sunday fun day includes making rounds with kids for samples. The following weekend was Father's Day, and as expected, it wasn't a big celebration like it is for many dads. Our family got together for a BBQ and simple family time. My wife treated it like any other day: sleep in, get up, cook, phone, shop, attempt to play with kids, and phone again. During the family BBQ, my wife said she felt ill, so she sat around most of the day while the rest of the family made the experience enjoyable. When everything was set up and the family all sat at the table, her parents, sister's family, my mother, and our kids, it was a great spread. Nothing extravagant, but a wonderful meal for everyone. I was conversing with my brother-in-law about both of our kids' school Father's Day activities, and I assumed my wife overheard when I mentioned that it was a little sad to see some kids sit alone without their fathers during the breakfast with dad event I attended. She blurted out with a laugh loud enough for the whole room to hear, "It's not like you do anything anyway. I could have gone instead." At that moment, I was shocked and at a loss for words, sitting there processing what she said while the dining room went dead silent. My mother-in-law broke the awkwardness by saying, "Well, maybe if you feel that way, one of you should divorce the other." My wife looked at her confused and then laughed mockingly in my direction, pointing at me and said, as if another woman would want a man like him, "Just look at you." The room sat silent as I felt angry, heartbroken, confused, and embarrassed all at the same time. In typical manly fashion, I just nodded my head in silence, stood up, picked up my keys, and drove off to get a drink, trying to ignore the cries of the rest of the family and our kids telling me to stay. I don't know what was said or done while I was out of the house for the rest of Sunday because I couldn't bring myself to check our house cameras. When I returned early Monday morning, the house had a completely different feel. As usual. I woke up around 6 a.m., got the house and our oldest ready for school drop-off, checked emails and messages, nothing out of the ordinary. As I was getting dressed to leave, my wife lay in our bed snoring lightly. All I could do was look at her and think of what we had and now lost. I've decided I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I texted my lawyer that morning to move forward with serving her. Fast forward to last week, she was served at our home. She had what you could call a mini meltdown and came into my office screaming, "How could you do this to me?" Her mother intervened, and that was met with accusations of me supposedly turning her whole family against her. I probably would have felt bad if it wasn't immediately followed by her acting as if she had been this active and attentive wife and mother for the past few years. Sure, people can say she's making an attempt, but she's made many attempts before, and historically we fall back to where we've been. For those curious, I am aiming for full or at least majority custody of our kids. I already cover and will continue to cover all the expenses for our kids, including insurance. Tuition both of our kids will be attending private schools come fall, medical bills, etc. My mother-in-law has given me the courage and strength that helped supplement my own mother's support throughout this ordeal. She embodies the kind of mother and wife I hoped my wife would have been to our kids and me. Out of respect for my mother-in-law, as well as honouring my own mother's shared wishes, I will continue to oversee and contribute financial help if needed during her treatments. While some may feel I should cut their whole family off, I know the hardships that come with dealing with cancer and have experienced it firsthand as both a family member and a care provider. All in all, I am prepared to go to war if needed, but I just want a clean, no-fuss divorce. My wife has no alimony coming, so for the Redditors and Mummy Gang Facebook groups saying she needs to divorce me first and get that sweet alimony money, sorry to disappoint. First, we live in a state that does not typically enforce alimony. Second, she has the means for gainful employment immediately. Third, to help curb any potential problems, I will cover her insurance and bills until either the divorce is finalized or she gains full employment. So that's that. I'm done and waiting for the steps to be taken for everything to be finalized. Sorry it wasn't as exciting of a story with plot twists as some may have hoped for, but that's life. I'm not sure I'll update this once it's all finalized, which probably won't be for a few more months depending on if we go to war or not.